Elowen Hartwell heard the whisper before she saw the smile. It came from behind a fan. It carried the weight of a verdict. She did not turn. She did not flinch. 3 years married, no child, no heir. Tonight was not for pleasure. Tonight was for survival. A footman passed with champagne. His eyes flicked to her hand, then away too quickly. Elowen's fan snapped open, not for air, for armor. Lady Caraway approached with the smooth confidence of a woman offering kindness as a performance. "Your Grace," Lady Caraway murmured, curtsying at the precise angle that made certain people noticed. Elowen offered her hand. "Lady Caraway, you are very punctual." "Punctuality is the only virtue society rewards reliably," Lady Caraway said, smiling. Elowen's mouth lifted slightly. "Then we shall all be saints by midnight." Lady Caraway's smile widened. Her gaze drifted, lower than courtesy allowed, then rose again, as if nothing improper had occurred. "A beautiful home," she continued, "a devoted husband." "He is both," Elowen replied. "And you are so composed," Lady Caraway said, voice sweet as sugared almonds. "It must be a comfort, especially when people can be impatient." Elowen felt heat climb her neck. She kept her tone mild. "Society mistakes time for entitlement." Lady Caraway laughed lightly, the sound meant for listeners. "Oh, I do adore you." She drifted away into silk and murmurs, leaving Elowen standing in the wake of perfume and pity. Elowen moved toward a tall mirror, not to admire herself, to check whether she looked breakable. She did not. Good. A laugh rose near the card tables. It ended too neatly. The room was adjusting, as if everyone had been given a signal. Then the ballroom doors opened, and the air changed. Men straightened. Women shifted for a better view. The Duke of Hartwell entered without announcement, because he had never needed one. Corrin Ashcombe crossed the room with quiet certainty. His gaze rarely wasted itself. When it found Elowen, it softened by a fraction, enough to make her chest loosen. "You are alone," he murmured when he reached her. "I was greeting," Elowen said, as required of a woman who owns the roof. A faint curve touched his mouth. "And did they behave?" Elowen kept her eyes on the crowd. "Define behave." Corrin followed her gaze. A pair of gentlemen near the dais leaned together with lazy confidence. Elowen caught a fragment. "Lovely, of course." "And still..." The sentence died unfinished, like a dropped glass. Corrin's jaw tightened. Elowen lowered her voice. "Corrin." His reply was quiet. "I know," Elowen swallowed. "I don't want you angry." Corrin's eyes stayed on her face. "Then don't stand alone." The orchestra lifted a waltz, bright, carefree, a lie dressed in music. Corrin offered his arm. Elowen took it because refusing would be noticed, and she was tired of being noticed for the wrong things. They moved together into the room, not hurried, not hiding, not bowed. They had not taken 10 steps before Lady Merivale slid into their path. Lady Merivale was tall and perfectly sharpened, as though she had been polished for this very hour. She curtsied to Corrin with theatrical grace. "Your Grace." Then her eyes settled on Elowen. "And you, Duchess." Elowen kept her voice light. "Lady Merivale." Merivale's smile glimmered. "Your house is exquisite," she said. "It must be such a comfort to host when one has so few other entertainments." Corrin's tone remained civil. "Lady Merivale." Merivale ignored him. Her gaze dipped again, lingering with deliberate impropriety. Then she looked to the nearby circle, women behind fans, men pretending not to listen. She chose her moment like a musician choosing a note. "What a shame, still no children." The words rang clear. Elowen felt her stomach drop. Heat rushed to her face. For one traitorous heartbeat, her lungs forgot their task. She held still. If she moved, it would look like defeat. Corrin moved first. He took Elowen's hand. He laced his fingers through hers. Slow, visible, unmistakable. His eyes stayed on Lady Merivale. "You will apologize." Merivale blinked once. "My dear Duke," she began, still sweet. "Surely you understand." Corrin stepped a fraction closer. not enough to scandalize, enough to remove her comfort. "My wife is not a subject for public commentary." A woman nearby made a small sound behind her fan. A man shifted his glass from one hand to the other. The room leaned in. Lady Merivale lifted her chin. "A simple observation," she said, "one the tongue cannot help but make." Corin's tone stayed even. "Then the tongue may learn discretion," he said, "beginning with you." Lady Merivale's eyes flicked around. She measured the room. Society loved cruelty until it cost status. Her curtsy was sharp, reluctant. "Duchess," she said, as if the word tasted bitter. "My apologies." Elowen inclined her head. No smile and no forgiveness offered like a prize, only composure. Corin turned away as if Lady Merivale had become irrelevant. He drew Elowen with him to the edge of the room, where a tall window framed a cold night sky. Behind them, conversation restarted too brightly. Elowen's pulse thundered. Corin angled his body so the nearest watchers could not see her face as clearly. "Look at me," he murmured. Elowen did. "I hate them," she whispered, the honesty slipping out before she could dress it in manners. Corin's gaze held hers. "Then let me handle them." The word made fear prickle. "Handle," Elowen echoed. Corin's mouth curved faintly. No humor, only intent contained in a gentleman's restraint. "We will not give them our pain," he said. Elowen breathed in, slow, careful. "What will we give them then?" Corin glanced past her shoulder at the glittering room, at the fans, at the eyes that had turned her marriage into sport. Then he looked back. His calm turned dangerous without ever becoming loud. "We will give them something else to talk about," he murmured. Elowen went still, because she heard it. Not comfort, not a jest, a decision. And whatever came next, it would not be gentle to the people who had made a game of her life. Corin did not take Elowen toward a wall. He took her toward the light, toward the open space where the dancers turned in slow circles and the watchers pretended they were not watching. Elowen's fingers tightened around his sleeve. "Corin," she murmured, low enough to keep the room from stealing it. "This is not wise." Corin glanced at her. His expression held its usual composure, the kind that made other men look uncertain beside him. "It's clear," he said. "Clear to whom?" Corin stopped at the edge of the dance floor. He looked over her shoulder at the nearest cluster of ladies. They stood with fans half open and mouths half closed, as if they were saving their comments for later. Then he looked back at Elowen. "To you." Elowen's throat tightened. A waltz continued as if nothing had happened. The orchestra played bright and untroubled. The room looked like a painting. And yet Elowen could feel the whispers moving. They did not need words. They had eyes. Corin lifted his chin toward the musicians. Not grand, just enough. The conductor noticed. A breath of change ran through the orchestra. The music swelled. Corin turned to Elowen and held out his hand. "Dance with me." Elowen stared at his palm. "Now." Here, with every gaze still warm from its last cruelty. "People are still—" "Watching," Corin finished. Elowen's voice went thin. "That is exactly why I shouldn't." Corin's mouth curved slightly. It wasn't a smile for the room. It was the briefest flash of something private. "I prefer them watching me choose you." Elowen's pulse struck hard. "Corin!" He kept his hand there. He waited. The music held its breath on her behalf. Elowen placed her hand in his. His fingers closed, warm, steady. He drew her into the current of the waltz. The crowd made space. Not kindly, not generously. The kind of space people make when they want a better view of a fall. Corin's arm settled at her waist. Firm enough to steady. Careful enough to respect. His other hand held hers at the proper height, as if they had done this 1,000 times and would do it 1,000 more. Elowen lifted her chin. She set her face. She kept her hurt tucked behind her ribs, where only her own heart could bruise against it. Corin moved as though the ballroom belonged to him, as though the room's opinion was nothing more than a draft under a door. Elowen stepped with him, once, twice. Then the waltz found her again, as it always did. Her feet remembered, her body followed. Her mind did not. "You're trembling," Corin said quietly. Elowen's answer came too quickly. "I'm not." Corin's gaze flicked down to their joined hands, then back to her face. He said nothing for a beat. Only turned her smoothly, letting the movement do the work of calming her breath. Elowen hated that he was right. She hated more that the trembling did not stop. "This is not triumph," she whispered when they passed near the windows, where the candlelight thinned. Corin's voice stayed even. "It is," he said, "because they wanted you smaller." Elowen swallowed. "And you want me." "Here," Corin murmured, "with me." A laugh threatened. Not joy, not quite. The sound of herself trying to return, it escaped as something thin. "I did not know you were so fond of crowds." "I'm not," Corin replied. "I am fond of you." The words were quiet. They still landed. Elowen's chest tightened hard enough to ache. She kept her eyes on his collar, on the line of his jaw, on anything but the faces around them. "You're making a spectacle," she whispered. Corin turned her again. The movement was clean, precise. "Let them stare," he said. "It gives them something harmless to do." Elowen's mouth twitched despite herself. "That is a cruel thing to say." "It's an accurate thing to say," Corin returned. "Cruel would be allowing them to believe they're important." Elowen nearly smiled. Nearly. Then the thought returned, sharp as a pin. "They will never stop counting," she whispered. Corin's gaze did not soften, it steadied. "Then let them count," he said. "They will only prove how little they have to live for." A real laugh touched her throat. It did not fully come out, but it warmed her chest all the same. Corin noticed. His mouth curved again. "There," he murmured. "That was you." Elowen's eyes stung. "Do not," she whispered. "Not like that." "Like what? As if you can pull me out of it with a sentence." Corin turned her, slower this time. The music carried them. The room blurred at the edges. "I'm not trying to pull you out," he said. "I'm trying to stand in it with you." Elowen's breath caught. She looked up at him. His eyes held hers without flinching. The steadiness was its own kind of tenderness, and it made her throat ache again. Corin's voice lowered further. "Do you remember our first ball?" Elowen's lips twitched. A memory slipped in before she could stop it. "I remember you stepping on my foot." Corin's brow lifted. "I did." "It hurt," Elowen said. "It did," Corin agreed, perfectly serious. "And you glared at me like a queen passing judgment." Elowen's mouth tightened. "You deserved it." "I did," Corin said, "and it worked." Elowen blinked. "What worked?" "You stopped trying to be perfect," he murmured. "You looked like a real woman for the first time all night." Elowen's throat tightened. "I am trying very hard to be perfect right now." Corin didn't laugh. He only watched her. Then he said quietly, "Then stop." Elowen's breath caught. The words should have felt too simple. They did not, because they were not instruction. They were permission. Corin guided the next turn with nothing but his steadiness. The music began to soften toward its end. Elowen felt the room leaning in again, sensing the close of the dance, as if the final note would decide whether she was safe. "Your mother," Elowen whispered. Corin's gaze sharpened. "She hears everything," he said. Elowen's stomach dropped. "And she will hear this," Corin added. Elowen's voice went smaller. "What?" Corin's expression remained calm. "There will be a toast tonight," he murmured. Elowen stiffened. "A toast?" "Yes," Corin said, "but not the one they expect." The waltz ended. Applause fluttered around them. Polite, curious. A few faces looked delighted, as if they had been given a show. A few looked offended, as if Elowen had dared to take up space. Corin bowed over Elowen's hand. He kissed her glove. Deliberate, public, unmistakable. The applause faltered, then returned, unevenly. Elowen felt heat rush to her cheeks. Corin lifted his head. His gaze met hers. "Breathe," he murmured. Elowen tried. A stir moved near the ballroom doors. Not the hungry hush of gossip. A different hush, the kind that came when the room sensed real power entering. Corin's arm tightened at her waist for one brief beat. Then it eased. Elowen turned her head. An older woman stepped into the ballroom, silver hair, a posture like judgment, a face that did not need to raise its voice to be feared. Her gaze swept the room. Then it landed on Elowen. Cold, measuring. Corin's voice went quiet at Elowen's ear. "My mother has arrived." Sibylla Ashcombe moved through the ballroom as if the chandeliers had been lit for her alone. Women curtsied too quickly. Men bowed too deeply. Smiles appeared like shutters being thrown open on command. Sibylla accepted it all without haste. A nod, a glance, a pause that made people hold their breath. She stopped before Corin and Elowen. Her eyes took Corin first, as if Elowen were an accessory he'd chosen poorly. "My son." Corin inclined his head. "Mother." Sibylla turned her gaze to Elowen. "Duchess." Elowen curtsied with care. "Dowager Duchess." Sibylla's mouth barely moved. "Your house is lively." Elowen kept her voice smooth. "It is our wish." Sibylla's eyes lingered. Not admiration, assessment. "I should like a word," Sibylla said. Corin did not move aside. "Here." Sibylla's gaze sharpened. "Privately." Corin's answer was immediate. "No." A tight hush formed nearby, not a full silence, a listening silence. A circle of curious bodies that pretended not to shift closer. Sibylla's expression remained composed, only her eyes cooled. "You forget yourself," she murmured. Corin held her gaze. "I remember myself." Sibylla's smile appeared, thin, precise. "Then I will speak plainly," she said, "since the room seems fond of plain speech." Elowen felt the air change. Fans slowed. A laugh died halfway through a breath. Sibylla leaned the smallest bit closer. "The room has been unkind." Elowen kept her chin lifted. "Unkindness is fashionable." Sibylla's eyes did not soften. "Fashion becomes danger," she replied, "when it stains a name." Corin's voice cut in. "Is that your worry?" he asked, "or your entertainment?" Sibylla looked almost amused. "My worry is Hartwell," she said. "My worry is your line." Elowen's stomach tightened. Corin shifted closer to Elowen, a quiet claim the room could not mistake. "My wife is not on trial," he said. Sibylla's gaze flicked to Elowen, then returned to Corin. "She is," Sibylla replied, "whether you admit it or not." Heat rose under Elowen's skin. Not shame. Anger. Sibylla watched her as if she had expected it. "You host well," Sibylla said smoothly. "You curtsy well. You dress well." Elowen stayed still. She let Sibylla spend her compliments like coins. Sibylla's next words landed softly. That softness made them worse. "You have simply failed at the one duty society does not forgive." Corin's voice cut through the space. "That is enough." Sibylla did not flinch. "You think the world cares about tenderness," she said. "It cares about proof." Corin's jaw tightened. "My marriage requires no proof from you." Sibylla's gaze drifted past them. To the dais, to the servants, to the gathering crowd that had formed itself into a neat, hungry half-circle. "There will be a toast," Sibylla said. Elowen's pulse jumped. Corin's tone went flat. "You will not." "I will," Sibylla replied. Elowen kept her voice steady by force. "Why?" Sibylla looked at her as if noticing a sound in the distance. "Because confidence must be restored," she said, "and whispers must be managed." Corin's gaze sharpened. "By humiliating her." Sibylla's smile thinned. "By guiding her," she corrected. A young woman stepped into view behind Sibylla's shoulder, golden hair arranged with careful prettiness, a smile practiced enough to pass as sweetness. Pretty enough to be dangerous. Sibylla placed a hand on the woman's arm, as if marking ownership. "This is Lady Isolde Kershaw," Sibylla said, "a widow of good sense." Isolde curtsied. "Your Grace." Her voice was polite, her eyes were not. Unease flickered there, quick as a bird's wing. Elowen felt her stomach drop anyway. Sibylla continued, still smooth. "She adores children," Sibylla said. "She speaks of them constantly." Isolde's smile wavered, just for a moment. Then it returned, fixed in place. Corin's voice cut in. "Mother." Sibylla did not look at him. Her gaze stayed on Elowen. "Do you see," she murmured, "how quickly society replaces what disappoints it?" Corin lifted Elowen's hand. Not for tenderness, for clarity, a vow displayed like steel. "My wife is not replaceable," he said. Isolde's color drained. Her fingers tightened around her reticule. Sibylla's smile returned. "Then prove it," she said. Corin's gaze held his mother's. "I will." Sibylla's eyes glittered. "Not with affection," she murmured. "With certainty." Elowen's breath caught. Sibylla turned away as if the conversation had been settled. She headed for the dais. The crowd parted for her like water. A footman moved as if he had been waiting for a signal. Elowen felt her heartbeat in her throat. Corin's voice dropped near her ear. "Stay with me." Elowen did not answer. She could not. She watched Sibylla step up onto the dais. A tray appeared. A glass waited. The room quieted, not because it was polite, but because it was ready to be fed. Elowen understood with sudden dread whatever came next would happen in front of everyone, and Corin intended to stop it. The words did not echo, they did not need to. They sat in the space between Elowen and the room and made everyone suddenly very interested in their own gloves. Lady Merivale's smile remained in place, too bright to be kind. Elowen felt heat creep up her neck, not from embarrassment alone, from the calm certainty with which the cruelty had been delivered, as if it were an observation about the weather. Corin's hand tightened around his glass. Then he set it down, slowly, precisely. The motion drew eyes like a bell. He turned, not toward Elowen, toward the woman who had spoken. Lady Merivale lifted her chin. She had the look of someone who expected him to laugh along. Corin's voice came even. "Repeat it." A hush fell. Lady Merivale blinked, then gave a small, tinkling laugh that sounded wrong in the silence. "Oh, Your Grace," she said, "must we pretend we are all deaf?" Corin didn't move. He waited. Lady Merivale's smile faltered at the edges. Elowen could feel the room shifting. People did that when they sensed blood. They were not sure who would bleed yet. Lady Merivale's gaze slid briefly to Elowen. Then she said it again, softer, as if softness made it decent. "What a shame. Still no children." A faint intake of breath moved through the crowd. Elowen's stomach turned. Corin's expression did not change. That was what frightened Elowen most. He stepped closer to Lady Merivale, not close enough to cause scandal, close enough to remove her comfort. "You will apologize," Corin said. Lady Merivale's cheeks colored. "For what?" she asked too quickly. "For noticing the obvious?" Corin's gaze stayed on her face. "For speaking of my wife as if she is entertainment," he said. "For daring to make your boredom her burden." Lady Merivale's smile became stiff. Several nearby ladies began to look away, suddenly fascinated by the hem of a gown. Someone's fan fluttered too fast. Elowen stood very still. Her hands were folded. Her knuckles ached from the pressure. Lady Merivale gave a brittle laugh. "I have no quarrel with the Duchess," she said, loud enough for the circle to hear. "I only—" Corin cut her off without raising his voice. "Apologize," he repeated. Lady Merivale hesitated. She looked around for rescue. None came, only watching, only the hungry stillness. Her mouth tightened. Then she dipped into a curtsy that had no grace in it. "My apologies, Duchess," she said. The words were correct. The tone was not. Corin's gaze sharpened. "Again." Lady Merivale's eyes widened. Elowen felt the room hold its breath. Lady Merivale swallowed. She curtsied a second time. Lower, real. "I beg your pardon, Duchess," she said. "I spoke out of turn." Elowen kept her face steady. It would have been easy to let satisfaction show. It would have been easy to look small. She chose neither. "Thank you, Lady Merivale," Elowen said quietly. The woman rose quickly, cheeks hot, and backed away as if the air around Elowen might burn her. A low murmur returned to the room in careful threads. Not relief, recalculation. Elowen heard it in the way people shifted, in the way smiles were rearranged. Corin turned back to Elowen. His gaze flicked over her face as if checking for damage. He did not touch her. Not here, not while everyone watched. But he angled his body slightly, blocking the nearest cluster as if his presence alone could be a wall. "Do you wish to leave?" he asked. Elowen's throat tightened. If she left now, they would say she fled. If she stayed, they would try again. She lifted her chin. "No," she said. A faint change passed through Corin's expression. Approval. Quiet. He nodded once, then he looked up, past the guests. Toward the ballroom doors. They had opened, not wide, only enough. A servant stepped through first. Then Sibylla Ashcombe entered, as if she owned the air. The Dowager Duchess did not hurry. She did not scan the room. She simply moved forward, and the room made space. Elowen felt a coldness crawl along her spine. Sibylla's gown was a deep, severe shade that drank the candlelight. Her grey hair was arranged with perfect restraint. Her face held no softness at all. She looked at Corin first. Then, and only then, she looked at Elowen. The glance was quick, flat, as if Elowen were a misplaced ornament. Sibylla's mouth curved. "Corin," she said, as if she were greeting a nephew rather than a duke. Corin's voice stayed calm. "Mother." Sibylla's gaze moved past him. She beckoned. Someone followed her in. A young widow, elegant, pale gold gown, hands folded too tightly around a small reticule. Lady Isolde Kershaw. Elowen did not know her well. She knew her reputation. Pretty, wealthy enough, recently bereaved, society's favourite sort of soft story. Isolde curtsied to Corin, then to Elowen. Her smile was polite. Her eyes were uneasy. Sibylla spoke as if presenting a vase. "Lady Isolde has been kind enough to join us," she said. Corin's gaze stayed on his mother. "What do you want?" he asked. Sibylla's smile sharpened. "How unromantic," she murmured. "Must everything be so blunt?" Then she lifted her voice slightly, not shouting, just enough that the nearest circles could hear. "I believe a toast is in order," Sibylla said. A ripple of interest ran through the room. Glasses were raised instinctively. People loved a toast. It meant permission to stare. Corin's voice was quiet. "There will be no toast." Sibylla's eyes narrowed, then softened again, as if she were indulging a child. "Oh, Corin," she said, "do not be dramatic." Elowen felt the room's attention shift like a weight. She kept her face still. She kept her shoulders back. She wished, fiercely, for the floor to open and swallow Sibylla whole. Sibylla turned her gaze to Elowen. "Come," she said lightly, "let us do something pleasant. A toast to the Duke, a toast to Hartwell." Elowen's stomach tightened. Hartwell meant heirs. Hartwell meant the question. Hartwell meant the knives that smiled. Corin stepped forward just enough to claim the centre without making a show. "No," he said. Sibylla's smile did not falter. "You speak to your mother, as if she were a stranger," she said. Corin's gaze was steady. "I speak to you as the mistress of your own tongue," he replied. "Use it wisely." A faint stir ran through the guests. Sibylla's eyes flashed. Then she looked beyond Corin, toward the crowd. She lifted her hand slightly. A conductor's gesture. People leaned in. Sibylla's voice turned gentle. "I only wish to protect you both," she said. "It is difficult, of course, when there is uncertainty." Elowen's chest tightened. There it was, the word with lace on it, uncertainty. Sibylla glanced toward Isolde, who stood very still, smile fixed, fingers white around her reticule. "Society can be unkind," Sibylla continued, as if this were sympathy. "It invents stories." Corin's voice cut in. "And you feed them." Sibylla's eyes returned to him. "Do I?" she murmured. "Or do I simply refuse to pretend?" Corin's jaw tightened. "Stop," he said. Sibylla's mouth curved. "I wonder," she said softly, "how long you plan to endure this before you do what is required." The guests pretended not to listen. They listened with their whole bodies. Elowen's throat burned. Corin's gaze did not move from his mother. "What is required?" he asked, voice low. Sibylla's tone stayed light. "A solution," she said. "A certainty. A proper handling of the matter." Elowen felt Corin's stillness, the kind that came before a storm. Sibylla watched him. Then she said it, quiet enough that it was almost private. Almost. "You will give me an heir," Sibylla murmured, "one way or another." Elowen felt the room tilt, because that was not a whisper of society. That was a threat from blood. And Corin's face did not soften. It hardened, in front of everyone, as if he had just decided something that could not be undecided, and the room, sensing it, fell completely silent. Corin did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Sibylla's words had already done the loud work. One way or another, they sat in the air, polished and poisonous, as if she had said them over tea. Elowen felt her throat tighten, her fingers clenched without her meaning them to. Corin stepped half a pace in front of her. Not dramatically, simply enough that the room's eyes had to pass over him before they reached her. "That is enough," Corin said. Sibylla's smile stayed in place. "How stern," she murmured. "How very ducal." Corin's gaze stayed steady. "Leave my house." A ripple moved through the guests who had lingered near the doors, too curious to go, too fearful to come closer. Sibylla's eyes glittered. "You forget yourself." Corin's mouth tightened. "I remember myself perfectly." Sibylla turned her head slightly, as if listening for approval. The room gave none. Only silence. Only breath. Only the soft rustle of gowns. Elowen saw Lady Isolde standing near the edge of the crowd, hands folded too tightly over her reticule. Her earlier smile was gone. She looked like a woman wishing she could vanish through the floor. Sibylla noticed her too, her expression sharpened with satisfaction. Corin spoke again, quiet and very clear. "My wife is not your project." Sibylla's brows rose. "Your wife is your responsibility," she returned, "and so is Hartwell." "I have not neglected either," Corin said. Sibylla's smile thinned. "Have you not?" she asked softly, and the room leaned in without moving. Elowen felt heat rise under her skin. It was not only shame, it was fury at being treated like a topic instead of a person. Corin's voice cut through it. "Stop," he said. Sibylla's gaze lingered on Elowen. "You look pale," she observed. "How delicate." Corin's head turned sharply. "She is not delicate," he said. "She is tired of being hunted." Something in his tone made the nearest guests glance away. As if suddenly remembering they had faces, Sibylla gave a small sigh. "So much emotion," she said, as if it were bad taste. "It does not produce heirs." Elowen felt Corin go still. The stillness was worse than anger. He turned his head toward a footman near the dais. "Close the doors," Corin said. "Now." The footman hesitated for only a second. Then he moved. Another servant followed. The ballroom doors swung shut. A soft thud, the sound of the house drawing a line. A murmur ran through the guests. Someone laughed nervously. It died quickly. Corin looked toward the musicians. "Stop playing," he said. The orchestra faltered mid-phrase. Bows paused. A final note hung. Then nothing. The silence that followed felt like a cold hand on the back of the neck. Sibylla's eyes narrowed. "You would dismiss everyone," she said. Corin's gaze stayed on her. "I would spare my wife your audience." Sibylla stepped forward, her voice lowered. "Do you think you can lock doors on society," she asked, "and make it disappear?" Corin's answer was immediate. "I can lock doors on you." A small sound left someone's mouth. Shock, delight, fear. Elowen kept her face still. Inside, her heart hammered hard enough to hurt. Sibylla's expression hardened. "You will regret humiliating me," she said. Corin's mouth curved without warmth. "Regret is for men who hesitate." Sibylla took another step, as if she might force the room to bend by presence alone. "You will give me an heir," she said quietly. "One way or another." Elowin's stomach dropped. Corin did not flinch. He did not look at the guests. He looked only at his mother. "You will not touch my wife," Corin said. Sibylla's smile returned, slow, sharp. "And how will you stop me?" she murmured. "If you refuse to do what is required." Elowin felt the eyes of the room shift between them like a turning crowd at a duel. Corin's voice stayed calm. "By refusing to treat my marriage like a marketplace." Sibylla's gaze flicked past him, to Elowin. Her eyes narrowed. "I wonder," she said softly, "how long you can protect her without losing what you hide." Elowin's breath caught. Corin's jaw tightened. Sibylla leaned in the smallest bit. Her voice turned almost gentle. "That precious truth," she whispered. "The one you think you can keep." Corin's tone dropped. "I will not expose my wife for your satisfaction." Sibylla's smile sharpened. "Then you will obey," she murmured. Corin's gaze held hers. "I will not." The room seemed to hold its breath. Then Sibylla stepped aside, not defeated, simply deciding the stage would change. Corin turned away from her as if she had already been dismissed. He reached for Elowin, not with flourish, not with public tenderness. His hand was offered. Elowin placed hers into it, his fingers closed, warm, steady. He led her out of the ballroom, not rushed, not shaken, as if he could carry dignity like a lantern and keep it lit for both of them. They moved into the corridor beyond. The noise dulled behind the closed doors. Elowin's lungs unlocked. She drew a breath that felt like it scraped her throat. Corin stopped beside a marble table where white roses sat in a vase. Their petals looked too innocent for this house. Elowin stared at them as if the roses had done something wrong. Corin faced her. His expression softened slightly, the way a man's face changes when the audience is gone. "Are you all right?" he asked. Elowin let out a short laugh. It sounded brittle. "Is that a real question?" she whispered. Corin's gaze stayed on her face. "It's the only one that matters," he said. Elowin swallowed. "I am angry," she admitted, "and I am humiliated." Corin nodded once. He did not correct her. He did not tell her to be grateful. He only accepted the truth as it was. "Good," he said quietly. "Anger keeps you standing." Elowin's eyes stung. "She wants control," Elowin whispered, "and she wants an heir." Corin's mouth tightened. "She wants to own our future," he said. Elowin's voice turned thin. "And she can." Corin's gaze sharpened. "No," he said. Elowin blinked. His certainty hit like a wall she could lean against. "She said, one way or another," Elowin whispered. Corin's jaw clenched. "I heard her," he said, "and she will learn what another looks like." Elowin exhaled. The corridor felt colder. The house felt like it had ears. Elowin lowered her voice. "You said you would not expose me," she whispered. Corin's answer was immediate. "I won't." Elowin's throat tightened. "She thinks there is something," Elowin said. Corin watched her carefully, as if making sure her fear did not become shame. "There is something private," he said, "and she will not drag it into her theatre." Elowin held his gaze. For a moment her chest ached with gratitude. Then the fear returned, sharp. "But she won't stop," Elowin whispered. Corin's mouth curved faintly. Not humor, resolve. "Then we move the stage," he said. Elowin's breath caught. "You mean leaving?" "Yes," Corin said. Elowin swallowed. "And if society follows?" Corin's eyes steadied. "Let it," he said. "I'll still be there." The words were simple. They landed anyway. Because he did not say them like a romance hero. He said them like a husband. A footman appeared at a careful distance. He looked as though he wished he had been born mute. "Your Grace," he murmured. Corin turned his head. "What?" The footman kept his eyes lowered. "The Dowager Duchess requests a private audience," he said. "At once." Elowin's stomach dropped. Corin's gaze returned to Elowin. His voice lowered. "Stay here," he said. Elowen's mouth went dry. "Corin," his expression tightened. Not fear, decision. "I won't be long," he said. Elowen wanted to argue. She wanted to insist she could face Sibylla too, but the corridor suddenly felt narrow. The house suddenly felt too watchful. Corin's hand squeezed hers once. A brief pressure, then he let go. He turned toward the far door, the one that led to the private room where Sibylla waited. Elowen watched him go, and as the door closed behind him, the corridor seemed to breathe again. Only now, Elowen was the one left standing in it. Elowen remained in the corridor after Corin disappeared through the door at the far end. The house did not fall quiet, it only changed its sound. Downstairs the party still lived. Laughter rose and fell. A chair scraped. A glass chimed against another, as if joy could be made by force. Elowen kept her hands together. She kept her face still. If she moved too much, the night might spill out of her in public, and she would never be allowed to gather it back again. A servant passed with a folded tablecloth over one arm. He did not look at her. He did not need to. Elowen looked at the door Corin had gone through. Behind it was his mother. Sibylla did not shout. Sibylla simply pressed. Press, press again, until something gave. Elowen took a slow breath. She tried to think of anything else. A soft step approached. A young maid appeared with a linen basket balanced against her hip. Her eyes widened as she saw Elowen standing alone, and she stopped too suddenly. "Your Grace," the girl whispered, then caught herself and curtsied. Elowen recognized her. Marin, a kitchen maid, quick hands, a nervous mouth. Elowen kept her voice gentle. "It's all right," she said. "Go on." Marin didn't move. Her fingers tightened around the basket. "They're saying things," she blurted. Elowen felt her stomach draw tight. "Who?" she asked. Marin's gaze darted toward the staircase, then toward the ballroom doors, as if the words themselves might follow her. "The ladies," she whispered, "the ones who smile with their teeth." Elowen gave a small nod. "That is not new." "It's worse tonight," Marin said, "because the Dowager Duchess came." Elowen's throat tightened. "Yes," she murmured. Marin swallowed. "And they're all waiting to see what she does," the girl added. "They're waiting like it's a play." Elowen wanted to tell her not to listen, not to carry other people's cruelty like a basket she couldn't put down. Instead, she only said, "Thank you." Marin curtsied again, too deep, and fled down the corridor as if chased. The air settled. Then it shifted again. A rustle, perfume, silk. Elowen turned. Lady Isolde Kershaw stood near the corner, as if she had stepped out of the wall itself. Her gown was pale gold. Her expression was carefully arranged. Her eyes were not. They looked uneasy. Isolde curtsied. "Duchess." Elowen returned the greeting with a nod. "Lady Isolde." Isolde hesitated, then took a few slow steps closer, stopping well short of intimacy. "I should not be here," Isolde said. Elowen kept her face composed. "Then why are you?" Isolde's fingers tightened on her reticule. "Because I dislike being handled," she replied. Elowen's brow lifted a fraction. "Handled?" Isolde's mouth tightened. "As if I am an object to be placed," she said. "As if I am a solution to be presented." Elowen's chest tightened with understanding she did not want. "So you came to tell me," Elowen said quietly, "that you are not her plan." Isolde's breath caught. Then she nodded once. "I am not," she said. "Not willingly." Elowen held her gaze. "And if she insists?" Isolde's eyes flicked away toward the door Corin had gone through, then back. "She can insist," Isolde said. "She cannot make me enjoy it." Elowen's mouth tightened. "She's clever," Elowen said. "She'll make it look like your idea." Isolde's cheeks colored slightly. "I am not innocent," she admitted, "but I am not cruel." Elowen breathed slowly. Isolde's voice lowered. "I heard what was said earlier," she murmured. Elowen didn't ask which line. The corridor still seemed to carry it. "What a shame. Still no children." Isolde's mouth tightened. "I thought your husband would allow it to pass," she said. "Men often do." Elowen's eyes stayed steady. "He did not." Isolde's gaze sharpened. "No," she agreed softly. "He did not." A pause settled between them, not comfortable, not hostile, only charged with truth. "I have seen husbands who prefer quiet," Isolde said. "Quiet even when their wives are cut." Elowen's throat tightened. "And what did you see tonight?" Isolde looked away for a moment, then back again, as if choosing courage. "I saw him choose you," she said, "where everyone could see it." Elowen's chest tightened in a way she didn't have words for. Isolde's fingers loosened around her reticule cord. "I will not be used against you," Isolde said. "I came to say that plainly, because plain speech seems to be the fashion in this house." The faint edge of wit landed, then softened. Isolde curtsied again. "I should go," she murmured, "before anyone thinks I am lingering for sport." Elowen nodded. "Go," she said. "And thank you." Isolde hesitated. Then she added very quietly, "If she asks me to stand beside her again, I will refuse." And then she left, footsteps quick, shoulders stiff, as if she feared being caught in the corridor like a thief. Elowen turned back toward the closed door. Her heartbeat thudded in her ears. Then the door opened. Corin stepped out. His expression had changed, not wild, not angry in a way the tongue would recognize, controlled, hard. His eyes found Elowen immediately. He crossed the corridor without haste. He stopped in front of her. "Did you hear anything?" he asked. Elowen kept her voice steady. "Only that your house has become entertainment." Corin's mouth tightened. He glanced once down the corridor, as if checking for ears, then brought his attention back to her. "She wants a physician," he said. Elowen's stomach dropped. "To examine me," she whispered. "To examine the marriage," Corin corrected, voice low. "To put it in a box she can carry around." Elowen swallowed. "And your uncle?" Corin's gaze sharpened. "Not yet," he said. But she spoke his name like a threat she was polishing. Elowen's fingers tightened. "What did she say to you?" Corin's breath left him slowly. "She spoke of an heir," he said, "as if it is something she can demand." Elowen's throat tightened. "And you?" I said no. The word was simple. It still felt like a shield. Elowen breathed in, then out. "She won't stop," Elowen said. Corin's gaze did not soften. "I know." Elowen stared at him. "Then what do we do?" Corin held her gaze. "We stop standing where she can reach," he said. Elowen blinked. "You mean upstairs?" "Yes. And tomorrow," Elowen whispered, because she had heard the shape of it in him. Corin's jaw tightened. "Tomorrow we take control," he said. Elowen's mouth went dry. "By leaving London?" Corin's eyes stayed steady. "Yes." Elowen let out a small breath. It was not relief. It was fear, with a different name. "The guests," she said. "They can chatter into empty rooms," Corin replied. "And your mother." Corin's voice dropped. "She will follow with words," he said. "She cannot follow with authority if I remove the stage." Elowen's fingers curled. "You're certain?" Corin's gaze held hers. "I'm certain about you," he said quietly. "Everything else can be arranged." Elowen swallowed. The corridor felt suddenly too narrow. Corin shifted slightly, turning them away from the door, away from the listening house. "Come," he said. Elowen moved with him, not because she had no choice, because she wanted the only safety the night had offered her. And as they started toward the stairs, Elowen understood one sharp truth. Tonight had been gossip. Tomorrow would be paper. Corin led her away from the corridor and up into the quieter part of the house. The stairs seemed longer than they had any right to be. Below, voices drifted through doorways and halls, laughter that sounded a touch too bright, a cough that sounded like someone pretending nothing had happened. Elowen kept her eyes on the next step. Corin's hand was in hers, not guiding, not urging, simply there. At the landing, she stopped. "Leaving London," she whispered. Corin turned his head. The candlelight caught the hard line of his jaw. "Yes." Elowen swallowed. "You said it as if it were ordinary." "It's not ordinary," Corin replied. "It's necessary." She let out a short breath. "You chose the moment." "I chose the audience," he said. "They needed to hear it in the same room where they felt brave." Elowen's throat tightened. "And tomorrow," she said, "you want it again. Public." Corin didn't answer at once. He looked past her, down the stairwell, as if he could see his mother through walls. Then his gaze returned to Elowen. "If we slip away quietly," he said, "they decide why. They write the story." Elowen's mouth tightened. "And if we announce it?" "Then we own it," Corin said. "We leave on purpose. We leave with our heads up." Elowen stared at him. "You think that will stop them?" Corin's expression flickered. Not softness. Something more dangerous than softness. "No," he said, "but it changes what they can do." Elowen felt a cold pinch in her ribs. "What can they do now?" Corin's voice stayed even. "They can invite, they can exclude, they can whisper to men who hold accounts and favors and seats at tables." Elowen's fingers curled. "And your mother," she said, because she had to say it. Corin's eyes went flat for a moment. "My mother will do anything she believes is duty." Elowen's laugh came out wrong. "That word," she murmured. "It makes cruelty sound like virtue." Corin's mouth tightened. "Yes." They reached their bedchamber. The door closed. The noise from downstairs became distant. The room was warm with firelight. It should have felt like relief. Elowen stood in the middle of the rug as if she'd forgotten how to move. Corin crossed to the mantel and stared into the flames. He held himself still, too still. Elowen watched his shoulders. His restraint looked like effort. "You're angry," she said. Corin didn't look away from the fire. "I'm controlled," he corrected. Elowen's throat tightened. "That isn't an answer." Corin turned then. His gaze met hers. "I'm furious," he said quietly. "But I'm not going to pour it on you." Elowen blinked hard. "I don't want you furious," she whispered. "I want you safe." Corin's mouth twitched once. A brief, humorless curve. "Safe," he repeated. "In London." Elowen's hands clenched. "I don't want you to fight everyone." Corin stepped closer. He didn't crowd her. He stopped a careful distance away, as if giving her room to breathe. "Look at me," he said. Elowen did. Her chest rose too fast. Her eyes burned. "Say it," Corin murmured. "The thing you've been swallowing." Elowen's voice came out thin. "I don't want to be the reason you become someone harsher." Corin's gaze sharpened. Elowen. He said her name like an anchor, not a reprimand, not a command, a steadying. Elowen tried to hold herself. She failed. A tear slipped, then another. She turned her head quickly, ashamed of the softness. Corin moved without haste. He reached for her hand. Elowen let him take it. His thumb rested against her knuckles, not stroking, not fussing, simply holding. "Elowen," he said again, softer. "You are not making me harsher." Elowen swallowed. "They're turning you," she whispered. "My shame is turning you." Corin's grip tightened a fraction. "Your shame," he repeated, voice low. "Don't give them that." Elowen stared at the floor. "It's hard not to," she whispered, "when they say it out loud." Corin's jaw tightened. He lifted her hand slightly, not to display it, but to bring it closer. He pressed her knuckles to his mouth. A brief touch, a promise made without a speech. "They can say what they like," he murmured. "They do not get to decide what you are." Elowen's breath broke. "You say that," she whispered, "but your mother is not like them." Corin went still. "She's worse," Elowen said, and the words came out before she could soften them. "Because she believes she's right." Corin let out a slow breath. "Yes," he said. "That is the worst kind." Elowen's eyes stung again. She threatened you, Elowen whispered. I saw it. Corin's gaze held hers. She threatened us. Elowen's voice dropped. About children. Corin's mouth tightened. Yes. Elowen's fingers curled around his. And about a truth, she whispered. The one she keeps pressing. Corin's eyes hardened. A shutter came down. Elowen felt it. Not secrecy as punishment, secrecy as protection. Not tonight, Corin said. Elowen's throat tightened. Why? Corin didn't look away, because he didn't want her to think he was hiding in cowardice. Because if I speak it while I'm angry, he said, I will speak it like a weapon. Elowen's breath shook. And you won't do that to me? Corin's answer was immediate. No, Elowen swallowed. Then when? Corin's voice softened by a degree. When you ask me, and you are not afraid I will drop you, he said, and when I can answer without wanting to tear the room apart. Elowen stared at him. The honesty hurt. It also steadied her. A tear slid down her cheek. Corin lifted his hand. He brushed it away with the back of his fingers. One simple motion, no ceremony. Elowen's voice cracked. I hate being looked at like I'm a problem to solve. Corin's gaze stayed steady. You are not a problem, he said. You are my wife. Elowen's chest tightened. That doesn't fix. It fixes the only thing that matters, Corin cut in gently. You and I. The rest is noise. Elowen let out a small, broken laugh. Your mother isn't noise. Corin's mouth tightened. No, he agreed. She is intent. Elowen's fingers tightened around his. I don't want to be carried, she whispered. I don't want you to take the blows meant for me. Corin's eyes softened finally, not in a showy way, in the way that made the room feel less sharp. Elowen, he said quietly, if they strike at you, they strike at me. That's not poetry, it's fact. Elowen swallowed hard. I don't want you burdened. Corin's thumb moved once against her knuckle, a small, steady press. I'm not burdened, he said. I'm married. Elowen's eyes filled again. She hated it. She loved him for it. A knock sounded at the door. Elowen startled. Corin's gaze shifted. Not panicked, alert. Come, Corin said. A footman's voice came through the wood. Your Grace, forgive the interruption. Corin's jaw tightened. What is it? The Dowager Duchess requests you downstairs, the footman said. At once. Corin didn't hesitate. No. A pause. Then the footman spoke again, careful. She is not alone, Your Grace. Corin went very still. Elowen felt it immediately. The room tightened. With her, the footman added, is Lord Wycliffe. Elowen blinked. The name meant nothing to her. Corin's face said it meant everything. My uncle, Corin said quietly. Elowen's throat tightened. Why is he here? Corin's gaze stayed on the door. Because my mother wants weight behind her threats, he replied. The footman cleared his throat. He says he must speak to you, the man continued, on a matter concerning the Hartwell estate. Elowen's stomach dropped. Estate meant paper. Paper meant power. Corin's fingers tightened around hers. Elowen looked up at him. What can he do? She whispered. Corin's gaze finally returned to her, steady, fierce. He can make tomorrow harder, Corin said. He cannot take you from me. Another knock followed, sharper, impatient. Corin's jaw tightened. He turned toward the door. Elowen caught his sleeve. No, she whispered. Don't go alone. Corin paused. He looked at her hand on his coat. Then he looked at her face. His voice was quiet. Are you sure? Elowen swallowed. I won't be left upstairs while they decide things about me, she said. Corin held her gaze. Then he nodded once. All right, he said. Stay near me. Elowen released his sleeve. Corin opened the door. The corridor waited, dim and watchful. The footman stood with his eyes lowered. Elowen stepped out beside Corin, and as they started toward the stairs again, Elowen understood one clear thing. Tonight had been gossip. Now it was ink and inheritance. And Sibylla had brought a man who could write pain into law. Elowen stood at the top of the stairs with her fingers locked around Corin's sleeve. Below, the house breathed. Quiet. Waiting. Corin held out his hand. He did not speak. He simply held it there. Open. Certain. Elowen stared at his palm. Then she placed her hand in it. His fingers closed around hers. Warm. Steady. They went down together. The lower hall was dimmer than the ballroom. The laughter had thinned. The music was gone. Only the low murmur of guests remained, like a tide that refused to retreat. A footman opened the drawing-room doors. Firelight spilled across the floor. So did voices. Sibylla Ashcombe stood near the mantel, straight as a blade. She looked as if she had been born to give commands and never hear no. Beside her stood a man Elowen had never met. Older, severe, a cane held more like punctuation than support. His gaze slid over Corin first, then it moved to Elowen. It paused, measured. Corin's voice was calm. "Uncle." "So you've come," the man replied. Not warm, not unkind. Practical. Then he dipped his head to Elowen. "Duchess." Elowen curtsied. "My lord." Sibylla's mouth curved. "How touching," she said softly. "You brought her." Corin did not release Elowen's hand. "She's my wife," he said. "She hears what concerns her." The man's expression barely changed. "Lord Wycliffe," Corin's mother added, as if Elowen should already know the name. Elowen inclined her head again. Lord Wycliffe tapped his cane once. A small sound. It made the room feel smaller. "We should sit," Sibylla said. Corin remained standing. Wycliffe watched him. "Always dramatic," Wycliffe murmured. "Just like your father." Corin's eyes sharpened. "Speak," he said. "You said the estate." Wycliffe nodded. "The estate," he agreed, "and the settlement." Elowen's stomach tightened. Settlement meant paper. Paper meant power. Wycliffe continued, voice mild as a man reading a list. "There are trustees," he said. "I am one. Your mother is another." Sibylla lifted her chin, pleased. Corin's jaw tightened. "And what are you doing here?" he asked. "As a trustee." Wycliffe's gaze remained steady. "Doing what trustees do," he replied. "Preventing uncertainty." Elowen heard the word behind the word. "Preventing you." Wycliffe looked at Corin as if speaking to a child who refused to learn arithmetic. "Your father set conditions," he said. "Reasonable ones." Corin's voice went colder. "Conditions about heirs." Wycliffe did not flinch. "Yes." Sibylla's eyes glittered. "Society has begun to circle," she said. "It always does." Corin's gaze cut to his mother. "You're enjoying this?" Sibylla smiled. "I'm managing it," she corrected. Wycliffe lifted his cane slightly, then set it down again. "A clause activates at 5 years," he said, "if there is no heir." Elowen's breath caught. Corin's hand tightened around hers, not crushing, anchoring. "And what happens?" Corin asked. Wycliffe's tone stayed calm. "Certain funds revert to trustee discretion," he said, "until the succession is secure." Sibylla spoke as if reciting scripture. "For the good of Hartwell." Corin stared at them. "You mean you'll tighten my household," he said. "You'll punish my wife." Wycliffe's mouth lifted at one corner. "I mean we will protect the estate," he replied, "if you refuse to." Elowen kept her voice even. "Protect it how, my lord?" Wycliffe's gaze slid to her, surprised she spoke, then interested. "By requiring clarity," he said. Sibylla stepped forward. "A proper physician," she said. "A discreet inquiry. A conclusion we can use." Elowen felt heat rise in her face. Corin's voice cut in at once. "No." Sibylla's eyes narrowed. "No," she repeated, as if tasting rebellion. Corin's tone stayed controlled. "My wife will not be examined to satisfy your appetite for certainty." Wycliffe's brows lifted. "Not appetite," he said. "Insurance." Elowen's throat tightened. And if the physician finds nothing, Elowen asked softly, will the ton suddenly become kind? Sibylla's gaze snapped to her. No, she said, but it will become directed. Elowen held her gaze. Directed by you. Sibylla's smile returned. Protected by me, she corrected. Corin's mouth tightened. You call that protection? Sibylla's expression hardened. I call it survival, she said. A duchess must endure what is required. Elowen's chest tightened. Corin's fingers flexed around hers. Elowen spoke before his temper could. There is a document, she said. Wycliffe looked at her. Yes? And a solicitor, Elowen continued, because you do not threaten people with clauses and expect them to nod. Sibylla's jaw tightened. You will not summon solicitors like footmen. Elowen kept her tone polite. I will summon whoever I please in my house. A hush fell. Wycliffe watched Elowen with new attention. Corin turned his head slightly. He looked at her as if she had steadied the entire room. Wycliffe tapped his cane again. Tomorrow, he said. Then... Sibylla's smile sharpened. Tomorrow, she agreed, with witnesses who matter. Corin's gaze narrowed. And what else? He asked. Wycliffe's expression stayed mild. Your mother suggests a statement, he said. A simple one. Corin's eyes went colder. What statement? Sibylla's voice turned almost gentle. That you take the burden, she said. That the difficulty is yours, not hers. Elowen went still. Corin's head snapped toward his mother. You will not ask that of me. Sibylla's smile did not move. I am asking you to shield her, she said. A loving husband should. Wycliffe added too smoothly, it would quiet certain tongues. Elowen heard the trap click shut. If Corin refused, they would call him selfish. If he agreed, they would pry until the private truth was dragged into daylight. Corin's voice was quiet. I won't lie to feed your strategy. Sibylla's eyes sharpened. Lie, she echoed, so there is something to hide. Corin's gaze held hers. There is something private, he said, and you will not touch it. Sibylla stepped closer. You think you can outstare me, she murmured. Corin didn't blink. I think you forget whose house this is, he replied. Wycliffe's tone cut in, calm and final. Mr. Pelham has been sent for, he said. He will arrive in the morning. Elowen's stomach dropped. So this was not a conversation. It was an arrangement already in motion. Corin's voice went low. You planned this. Wycliffe's mouth barely moved. I prepared, he corrected. That is what competent men do. Sibylla's gaze fixed on Elowen. And tomorrow, she said softly, we shall see what you are truly entitled to refuse. Elowen's fingers curled around Corin's, not to cling, to brace, because she understood now. Tonight had been gossip, tomorrow would be ink. Morning arrived with the politeness of a threat. The sky was pale, the air was sharp. Elowen dressed as if she were dressing for court, not for beauty, for armor. Corin did not speak much as the carriage rolled toward Ashcombe House. He sat opposite her. His posture was composed, his hands were still. Only his gaze moved. It returned to her face more often than he meant it to. Elowen kept her chin lifted. She watched the streets pass. She listened to the wheels. She tried to keep her breath even. At the gates, the footman did not ask their names. He only looked as if he wished he could. The doors opened. The house swallowed them in. A servant led them through a corridor that smelled faintly of polish and old decisions. Voices waited ahead, not loud, not yet. A drawing-room door stood open. Inside, Sibylla sat as if she had slept in that chair all her life. Lord Wycliffe stood near the window with his cane in hand. A third man sat at the far side of the table, thin-lipped and careful-eyed, trustee or ally of trustees. Elowen could not tell. A blotter sat open, ink already poured. A pen laid neatly beside it. Mr. Pelham stood at the sideboard, arranging papers with the satisfaction of a man who liked order. He looked up as they entered. Your Grace, he said to Corin. Then, politely, Duchess. Elowen inclined her head. Sibylla's mouth curved. "Good," she murmured. "We need not waste time." Corin did not take the offered chair. He remained standing. Elowen remained standing with him. Sibylla's gaze flicked over them as if measuring a fabric. "Sit," she said. Corin's tone stayed even. "Proceed." Lord Wycliffe tapped his cane once, a small sound. It made the room feel smaller. "Mr. Pelham," Wycliffe said, "let us be plain." Pelham nodded and stepped forward. "The trustees have convened," he said, voice mild. "This is a private meeting concerning the Hartwell settlement." Corin's gaze did not move. "You are in my mother's house," he said. "Do not pretend you are in mine." Pelham's smile tightened. "As you wish," he replied. "The settlement contains a clause, as you have been informed. It activates at 5 years, in the absence of an heir." Sibylla's eyes gleamed. The thin-lipped trustee at the far end cleared his throat, as if uncomfortable with excitement. "We are not here to be cruel," he said. Sibylla looked at him. He looked away. Corin's voice stayed level. "Then don't be." Wycliffe's gaze held. "We are here to prevent uncertainty," he said. Elowen felt the words slide toward her like a blade. Corin answered calmly, "Your uncertainty is your hobby." Sibylla's smile sharpened. "You speak as though this is a game," she said. "It is your legacy." Corin's gaze turned to his mother. "It is my marriage." Sibylla's lips pressed together. Then she leaned slightly forward, too pleased to hide it. "Read the part that matters," she said to Pelham. Pelham lifted a document. His finger tracked a line. "In the event of a prolonged absence of issue," he read, "the trustees may—" Corin cut in. "Spare us the theatre." Pelham paused, then continued, careful. "May assume oversight of certain discretionary funds," he said, "and may require reasonable assurances that the succession is being pursued in good faith." Elowen felt her stomach tighten. "Assurances," she repeated softly. Sibylla's eyes snapped to her. "Yes," she said, as if Elowen had asked permission to speak. "Assurances." Corin's voice stayed controlled. "And your assurance is still a physician." Sibylla's tone turned almost sweet. "It is the sensible answer." Elowen's hands tightened at her sides. She kept her voice steady. "Do you understand what you're asking?" she said. Sibylla's gaze cooled. "I understand perfectly," she replied. "You wish to be loved. Society requires proof." Corin's jaw tightened. "My wife will not be examined." Wycliffe lifted his cane slightly, then set it down again. "Then you will offer another assurance," he said. Corin's eyes went colder. "You mean the statement?" Sibylla's smile returned. "A simple kindness," she murmured. "A husband taking the burden." Elowen felt the trap close again. If Corin agreed, the tongue would pry. If he refused, they would call him proud. They would call her the problem. Corin did not look at Elowen to ask permission. He simply answered, "No." Sibylla's eyes narrowed. "No," she echoed slow. "You would rather watch her be torn apart." Corin's voice stayed quiet. "I would rather tell the truth than feed your cruelty." Wycliffe's brows lifted. "Truth," he repeated. "So there is something." Corin held his gaze. "There is privacy," he said, "and you will not drag it into daylight." Pelham cleared his throat. "The trustees are entitled to safeguard the estate," he said. Corin's mouth curved faintly. No humor, only certainty. "Safeguard it from whom?" he asked. "From my mother." Sibylla's expression hardened. "I will not be spoken of like a thief," she said. Corin's gaze didn't waver. "Then stop trying to steal my wife's dignity." The thin-lipped trustee shifted in his chair. "Your Grace," he said, trying for reason, "if you simply give them a line to repeat—" Elowen turned her head toward him. "A line," she said softly. "To repeat." He hesitated. His eyes flicked to Sibylla, then away again. Pelham laid the paper down. "There are practical matters," he said. "Funds, household expenses, travel." Corin's tone stayed even. You are threatening to restrict me. Pelham didn't deny it. Wycliffe spoke instead. We are preventing you from making choices that damage Hartwell, he said. Corin's gaze sharpened. Like defending my wife. Sibylla leaned forward. You defended her in the ballroom, she said, and you looked unstable. Elowen's breath caught. Corin's voice stayed calm. I looked like a husband. Sibylla's smile returned, thin and cold. A husband does not shout at society, she murmured. He manages it. Corin's eyes did not move. Society is not my mistress, he said. It does not deserve managing. Wycliffe tapped his cane once, a warning sound. Enough, he said. We require an answer. Corin nodded. You have it, he replied. No physician, Wycliffe said. No statement, Sibylla added. Corin's gaze flicked over the room, the pen, the ink, the empty space on the page waiting for surrender. Then he looked at Mr. Pelham. You said reasonable assurances, Corin said. Pelham hesitated. Yes. Corin's voice remained steady. Then here is mine, he said. We leave London today. Sibylla's eyes flashed. You will not. Corin did not blink. I will. Wycliffe's expression tightened. You cannot outrun trustees with a carriage. Corin's mouth curved faintly. I don't need to outrun you, he said. I need to remove my wife from your reach. Sibylla rose, slowly. Her composure cracked just enough to show the steel beneath. You cannot take Hartwell away from its obligations, she said. Corin's gaze held. Watch me. Elowen felt the room hold its breath. She felt every eye on her now, as if she were the hinge on which this argument turned. Wycliffe's voice went calm. Then we act, he said. Pelham reached for the paper, for the pen, for the ink that would become law. Sibylla looked at Elowen, and her smile returned, careful and pleased. Sign, she said softly, or we will sign around you. Elowen's throat tightened. Corin's hand did not touch her. He did not need to. His voice came quiet at her side. Stand with me, he murmured. Elowen lifted her chin. She stepped forward, not to the pen, to the table, to the ink, to the trap, and as her shadow fell over the blank space waiting for surrender, Mr. Pelham dipped the pen as if the decision had already been made. The pen hovered above the paper. The ink shone like a threat. Mr. Pelham's hand was steady. His eyes were not on Elowen. They were on the blank space where obedience usually went. Elowen stepped closer, not to sit, not to submit, to make them look at her. Before you write anything, Elowen said quietly, I would like to know whose hand is meant to be bound. Mr. Pelham paused. Lord Wycliffe's cane tapped once, a soft impatience. You are delaying, Sibylla murmured, almost fond. Elowen kept her gaze on the paper. I am reading the room, she replied. Corin's voice came calm at her side. Then read it aloud. A faint shift went through the trustees, not anger, not fear, calculation. The thin-lipped man cleared his throat. He had the careful posture of someone who considered himself respectable enough to be cruel. Elowen had not been told his name last night. That had been deliberate. People withheld names when they wanted you to feel small. Lord Wycliffe gestured. Sir Gervase Locksley, he said, trustee, and a friend of the family. Sir Gervase inclined his head. Your Grace, he said to Corin. Then to Elowen. Duchess. His tone made the title sound temporary. Elowen returned the nod. Sir Gervase? Mr. Pelham eased the pen back, just slightly, as if he did not wish to be the first man stabbed for his handwriting. Elowen looked at Wycliffe. You are invoking a clause, she said, that activates at 5 years. Wycliffe's eyes narrowed. You were listening, he observed. I was standing in my own house, Elowen replied. It helps. Sibylla's mouth tightened. That clause concerns prolonged absence of issue, she said. It is prudent to prepare. Elowen's voice stayed mild. Preparation is not the same as power. Sir Gervase shifted, the movement small but telling. Wycliffe leaned a fraction forward. "The trustees may require reasonable assurances," he said. Elowen nodded once. "And you have decided," she said, "that reasonable includes demanding a physician and a public statement." Sybilla's eyes glittered. "Do not dress it up," she said. "It is very simple. We require certainty." Corin's tone cut in. "You require control." Sybilla looked at him as if he were stubborn furniture. "You will find," she said, "that control is often called duty when men object to it." Elowen let a beat pass. She looked at Mr. Pelham again. "Is the document before you the original settlement?" Elowen asked. "Or a copy?" Mr. Pelham hesitated. Wycliffe answered for him. "It is sufficient." Elowen's brow lifted slightly. "That is not an answer." Corin's voice stayed calm. "Produce the original." Sir Gervase gave a small, humorless sound. "You speak as though this is a courtroom," he said. Corin turned his head. His gaze settled on Sir Gervase with a steadiness that made the man's smile vanish. "It becomes one when you threaten my wife," Corin said. Sybilla's lips curved. "How dramatic," she murmured, "as if she is in chains." Elowen looked at her. "Not yet," Elowen said. Sybilla's smile thinned. Wycliffe lifted a hand, as though tired of theatre. "The trustees are not attempting to disgrace you," he said. "We are attempting to protect Hartwell." Elowen's voice stayed gentle. "Then you will not mind being exact." Wycliffe's gaze sharpened. Elowen continued, still polite. "How many years have I been married?" Sybilla's eyes flashed. Corin answered instead. 3. Elowen nodded. "And how many years until the clause activates?" she asked. Sir Gervase's mouth tightened. Wycliffe's reply was crisp. 5. Elowen let the silence hang. It was not long. It did not need to be. She looked at the ink, then at Mr. Pelham. "Then what you are doing," Elowen said softly, "is not enforcing a clause. It is attempting to frighten us into concessions before you have the right." Sybilla's composure cracked, just a fraction. "You think law will save you," she snapped. Elowen kept her tone mild. "I think law should at least be allowed to arrive before punishment." Corin's gaze stayed on Wycliffe. "You may convene," Corin said, "but you will not bind my household with threats and call it duty." Wycliffe's cane tapped again. "You are making enemies," he said. Corin's mouth curved faintly. "I have enemies," he replied. "I am simply ceasing to pretend they are family." Sybilla rose, slowly. Her hands smoothed her skirts as if she were preparing to be admired for her patience. "You are very brave in my house," she said. Corin didn't blink. "And you are very vicious in any house," he returned. Sir Gervase shifted again. He leaned toward Pelham, a murmured word that Elowen could not catch. Pelham's fingers tightened around the pen. Elowen saw it. A decision being made without consent. Elowen stepped closer to the table, not to snatch anything, not to shout. She placed 2 fingers lightly on the edge of the paper. An anchor. A claim. "You may write," Elowen said quietly, "but you will not have my signature." Sybilla's eyes narrowed. "We can sign around you," she said, voice almost tender. Corin's gaze cut to his mother. "Try," he said. Wycliffe's expression hardened. "You cannot stop trustees from safeguarding an entailed estate," he said. Corin's tone stayed even. "You cannot stop me from fighting you in every court that will hear the name Hartwell," he replied. Sir Gervase made a small sound. "You would air this," he said, disbelieving. Corin's mouth curved again, not warmly. "You are the ones who enjoy audiences," he said. "I am only offering you a larger room." Elowen felt the air change, not toward comfort, toward risk. Sybilla's eyes glittered. "You will ruin yourselves," she murmured. Elowen looked at her. "We are already being ruined," Elowen said softly. "We are simply choosing the direction." For the first time, Mr. Pelham looked unsettled. "Your Grace," he said to Corin, careful now, "if you refuse cooperation, there may be temporary measures." Corin's gaze sharpened. "Measures," he repeated. Pelham glanced to Wycliffe. Wycliffe gave a slight nod. Sir Gervase spoke, pleased to have power. "A note to the bank," he said. A pause, a prudence. Elowen's stomach tightened. A pause, Elowen echoed. Sibylla's smile returned. There, she said, now we are speaking sensibly. Corin's jaw tightened. You would freeze my household, he said. Sir Gervais's expression remained neat. Until we have assurances, he replied. Corin leaned slightly toward the table. His voice stayed low. You do not have the right, he said. Sir Gervais lifted his brows. Rights are often discovered after actions, he said lightly. Elowen felt a chill. That was the truth of men like him. They acted first. They apologized never. Corin straightened. His gaze moved to Elowen, brief and steady, a question without words. Are you with me? Elowen lifted her chin. Always. Corin turned back. Then do it, Corin said, and I will make you regret the speed with which you discovered your courage. Sibylla's eyes flashed. Corin, he cut her off without raising his voice. You wanted certainty, he said. Here it is. You will not touch my wife. You will not buy my compliance with money that was never yours, and you will not use my father's name to justify your appetite. Wycliffe's expression tightened at the mention of Corin's father. It was the first crack Elowen had seen in him. You presume too much, Wycliffe said. Corin's tone stayed even. No, Corin replied. I remember too much. He reached for Elowen's hand. He did not tug. He simply offered. Elowen placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers. Warm, steady. They turned toward the door. Sibylla's voice sharpened. If you leave, she said, you leave under consequence. Corin paused. He looked back at her. Then I leave under truth, he said. Elowen felt her chest tighten as they stepped into the corridor. The house smelled of polish and restraint. The air felt colder than it had on the way in. They had not gone 10 steps when a footman appeared from a side passage. Not one of Sibylla's usual men. This one wore Hartwell livery. Elowen's stomach dropped. Hartwell, here, now! The footman bowed quickly. His breath was uneven. Your Grace, he said to Corin. A message. Urgent. Corin's gaze sharpened. From where? From Hartwell, the footman said, and swallowed. From the steward. He held out a sealed letter. The wax was cracked, as if it had been opened in haste and resealed in fear. Elowen's fingers tightened around Corin's. Corin took the letter. His face did not change, but Elowen saw his eyes move. Once, twice, then stop. The corridor seemed to tilt. Elowen searched his face. What is it? She whispered. Corin did not answer at once. His thumb pressed against the broken wax. A small, unconscious motion. Then he looked at Elowen. His voice was quiet. We're not leaving today, he said. Elowen's breath caught. Behind them, from the drawing room, Sibylla's laughter floated out. Soft, satisfied, as if she had known all along that the world would find a way to tighten around them. And Elowen understood, with a sudden cold clarity, that the trap had more than one door. Corin did not move. The letter stayed in his hand, as if it weighed more than paper had any right to. Elowen watched his eyes. Once, twice, then still. Corin, she whispered. His thumb pressed the broken wax again. A small motion, controlled. I'm not leaving today, he repeated. Elowen's breath caught. Because of that. Corin folded the letter with care, as if roughness might make it worse. Yes. The footman hovered, pale. Your Grace, he murmured. The steward bade me say it could not wait. Corin's gaze sharpened. What, precisely, did he say? The footman swallowed. He said, There are men at Hartwell. Elowen's stomach dropped. Men, she echoed. The footman nodded quickly, relieved to speak to someone other than a duke. Not our men, he added, not tenants, not visitors, men with papers. Papers, always paper. Elowen felt the corridor tilt with it. Corin's mouth tightened. How did you come to London so quickly? The footman's hands clenched. I rode through the night, he said. The steward gave me coin and a horse and told me to kill the animal if I had to. Corin went very still. Then he looked to Elowen, not to frighten her, to include her. "Come," he murmured. They moved down the corridor together, not back into the drawing room, not toward Sibylla's satisfaction, toward the private study off the hall, where the door could close and the walls could not gossip. Corin shut the door behind them. The click of the latch sounded final. Elowen exhaled. Her fingers had been tight around nothing. Now she forced them to loosen. Corin opened the letter again. He read it once more, slower. Elowen waited. The waiting felt worse than words. Finally, Corin looked up. "They have sent a magistrate's officer," he said. Elowen's heart thudded. "To Hartwell." Corin nodded. "And a man from Pelham's office." Elowen stared at him. "That is not possible." Corin's gaze held steady. "It is possible," he replied, "because my mother has a house in London and a talent for moving ink." Elowen's throat tightened. "They promised it would be temporary measures." Corin's mouth curved faintly. No humor, only understanding. "They never mean temporary," he said. "They mean immediate." Elowen stepped closer. Not to take the letter, to anchor herself in something real. "What are they doing there?" Corin's voice stayed controlled. "They are requesting inventories," he said. "They are asking the steward for keys." Elowen felt heat flare. "Keys." Corin's jaw tightened. "They want access to the strong room," he added, "and the account books." Elowen's stomach turned. That was not caution. That was a takeover in polite clothing. Elowen swallowed. "Can they?" Corin's eyes sharpened. "Not lawfully," he said. "Not yet." Elowen's voice went thin. "But they are doing it anyway." Corin's gaze didn't soften. It steadied. "Yes." Elowen took a slow breath. She forced her voice to stay calm. "Then we go," she said. Corin looked at her. His expression shifted by a fraction. Not surprise, something like pride held in restraint. "Yes," he said simply. Elowen's hands shook. She hated it. She curled them together. "I don't want you fighting them alone," she added. Corin's gaze warmed, a fraction, a private warmth. "You won't be alone," he said. Elowen's throat tightened. "That is not what I meant." Corin stepped closer. He lifted his hand, not to claim her, to steady her. His fingers brushed her knuckles once, light. "You mean you don't want me forgetting you while I fight?" he murmured. Elowen's breath caught. "Yes," she whispered, "because honesty was safer than pride." Corin's voice stayed quiet. "I won't," he said. "I can do two things at once." Elowen nearly laughed. It came out as a small sound, a broken thing trying to be whole. Corin's mouth curved. Then it vanished as quickly as it came. "We must move quickly," he said. Elowen nodded. "Do we tell your mother?" Corin's gaze turned sharp. "No." Elowen's pulse jumped. "She will hear," Elowen said. "Let her," Corin replied. "I'd rather she hears we left than watches us pack." Elowen swallowed. "And what of Wycliffe?" Corin's mouth tightened. "He'll call it insolence," he said, "and he'll call it proof of instability." Elowen's voice steadied. "Then let him," she said. "We are allowed to protect our home." Corin looked at her. His gaze held. "You are very brave today." Elowen's laugh came out soft and bitter. "I am terrified," she whispered. Corin didn't correct her. He didn't tell her to be calm. He only moved closer until the space between them felt like shelter. "Good," he murmured. "Then you're awake." Elowen blinked. Corin's voice stayed low. "They rely on women being too polite to be awake," he said. "Too careful to be furious." Elowen felt something shift inside her. Not rage, resolve. She lifted her chin. "What do we do first?" Corin's gaze went to the bell pull. "We send word to our steward," he said. "We tell him to yield nothing, not keys, not books, not a drawer of sealing wax." Elowen nodded. "And if they force him?" Corin's mouth hardened. "Then we will arrive before they finish their threats," he said. He rang for a servant. When the man came, Corin spoke quickly and precisely. No wasted words, no room for misinterpretation. A second message went out to their coachman. Fresh horses, no delay. Elowen watched Corin move through it, steady, controlled, a man forced into speed. When the servant left, Elowen turned toward the window. The sky had brightened. London looked innocent in the morning. It never was. "Corin," Elowen said softly. He turned. Elowen held his gaze. "If this becomes public," she whispered, "they will say we are guilty." Corin's eyes didn't flinch. "Let them," he said. "They said you were guilty the moment you failed to give them a cradle." Elowen's throat tightened. Corin stepped closer. His voice softened. "They are not our judges," he murmured. Elowen's chest ached. "And yet they act like it." Corin's gaze held hers. "Then we teach them otherwise," he said. The door opened without ceremony. A maid entered, breathless. Not Elowen's maid, one of Sibylla's. Her cheeks were flushed as if she had run. "Your Grace," she said to Corin, eyes wide. "Her ladyship wishes to speak with you at once." Corin's expression didn't change. "No," he said. The maid hesitated. "She said," the maid began. Corin's voice stayed calm. "Tell her I'm leaving." The maid swallowed. "She said you cannot," she whispered. "She has already sent word." Elowen's stomach dropped. "Sent word where?" Elowen asked. The maid's eyes flicked to her, startled by the question. Then she looked back at Corin. "To Hartwell," she said. "To the village." Corin's gaze sharpened so quickly, Elowen felt it like a gust. "What word?" Corin asked. The maid's voice trembled. "She said the trustees are coming," she whispered. "She said they will arrive before you." Elowen felt her blood run cold. Corin went very still. Then he looked at Elowen. His voice was quiet, deadly calm. "Now," he said, "we race." Corin did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The words landed like a bell struck once. Clear, final. Elowen's pulse jumped. "Corin!" "Cloak!" he said, already moving. A servant stepped forward with one. Not helpfully, not kindly, as if the house wanted to watch her put it on. Corin took it before anyone else could. He turned Elowen toward him. His hands lifted the fabric and settled it over her shoulders with careful speed. No fumbling, no display, only competence. "Fasten it," he murmured. Elowen's fingers obeyed, clumsy with hurry. Corin's gaze flicked to her hands, then to her face. "You're pale." "I'm furious," Elowen whispered. His mouth curved faintly. "That will keep you warm." They moved through the hall. A footman hurried ahead. A maid hovered at the edge, eyes wide, as if she wished to be useful and feared being blamed for it. Elowen heard the drawing-room behind them, the faint clink of glass, the murmur of voices, Sibylla's world continuing as if she could keep them inside it by pretending they were still there. At the front steps, the carriage waited. Fresh horses, steam rising from their flanks. The coachman's hat brim was set low. He looked straight ahead, as if he could not bear to know too much. Corin helped Elowen in, not as a show, as a necessity. His hand steadied her elbow. His fingers released as soon as her feet found the step. He climbed in after her. The door shut. The carriage lurched. London began to fall behind them. Elowen gripped the strap at the window, watching the streets blur. "Tell me the truth," she said. Corin's voice stayed even. "They sent word to Hartwell," he replied. "They mean to arrive before we do." Elowen swallowed. "With what authority?" Corin's jaw tightened. "With paper," he said. "With Pelham's ink. With my mother's name." Elowen's throat went dry. "And if our steward—" "He won't yield," Corin cut in. His gaze held hers, then softened. Just enough. "He won't," he repeated. "I chose him." Elowen tried to breathe. She tried to make her mind useful instead of frightened. What happens if they reach the village first? Corin's mouth tightened. "They'll attempt to take keys," he said. "They'll frighten tenants. They'll tell servants there is a new order." Elowen's hands curled. And if someone believes them... Corin's tone stayed calm. Then we correct it, he said, loudly. Elowen let out a short breath. Loudly, she echoed. Corin's mouth curved faintly again. You are allowed, he murmured. Elowen stared at him. He meant it. He meant it like permission, like relief. Elowen's voice turned quieter. I don't want to be the reason your house is shaken. Corin's gaze sharpened. No, he said. One word, unarguable. Elowen swallowed. Corin, he leaned a fraction closer. Not to soothe her like a child, to make his certainty unavoidable. They would have done this with any wife, he said. They chose you because you are not easily replaced. Elowen's breath caught. That is not what they say. Corin's eyes held hers. That is what I know, he said. Elowen looked down at her hands, at the way her fingers worried the edge of her glove. Tell me what you need from me, she whispered. Corin's reply came without hesitation. Stay beside me, he said. And if they speak to you like you are small, do not answer like a small woman. Elowen's throat tightened. I don't think I can be elegant while I'm terrified. Corin's gaze warmed. Then be honest, he said. Honesty is often more elegant than the ton deserves. Elowen nearly laughed. It came out in a thin sound. Corin's hand moved. He didn't take her fingers. He placed his palm over her gloved knuckles, steadying them against the tremble. A grounding pressure, not indulgent, not dramatic. Elowen looked up. His eyes met hers. You're shaking, he murmured. Elowen tried to pull her hand away out of pride. Corin kept it there with gentle insistence. You can shake, he said. Just don't step back. Elowen's breath caught. I won't, she whispered. Corin's thumb shifted once, a small stroke over the seam of her glove. Then he withdrew, as if he did not wish to make tenderness into spectacle even in a carriage. The road lengthened. The day brightened, and still the fear stayed sharp. At a posting inn, Corin spoke to the stablemaster himself. He did not look like a duke then. He looked like a man who had been forced to learn speed. Elowen stepped down and watched servants rush. Horses exchanged, harnesses tightened. A boy stared at her too long. Elowen lifted her chin. The boy looked away at once. Corin returned with 2 cups. Tea. Not good tea. Hot tea. He handed one to Elowen. You haven't eaten, he said. Elowen stared. How can you think of that? Corin's expression remained steady. Because your body will betray you if you starve it, he replied, and they will call it weakness. Elowen's throat tightened. She took the cup. It warmed her hands. It steadied her breathing by force of heat. Corin watched her take a sip. Then he nodded once, as if one small act of survival mattered. Back in the carriage, the hedgerows began to change. The air smelled different. Less smoke, more earth. Elowen felt something unclench. Then, in the distance, Hartwell's lands appeared. Familiar trees, the line of the drive, the curve of the stone wall. Elowen's heart lifted, and then dropped again, because there were carriages, 2 of them, parked at the foot of the drive like sentries. Elowen's fingers tightened on her cup. Corin leaned to the window. His gaze sharpened. Too late, Elowen whispered. Corin's voice stayed calm. Not too late, he replied. The carriage rolled forward. Hooves thudded. Wheels crunched gravel. Servants stood outside the main doors. Not in neat lines, in a cluster, their faces tight, their shoulders tense. A stranger in a dark coat held papers in his hands, as if paper were a weapon. Beside him stood Mr. Pelham. Elowen felt cold wash through her. Pelham looked up, his mouth tightened. Then he smiled, thin and pleased. Corin stepped down first. He didn't rush, he didn't stride. He simply arrived like an answer. Elowen followed. Her feet found the gravel, her shoulders squared. Corin offered his hand. Not to pull her, to place them together, where the world could not pretend they were separate. Elowen took it. The steward hurried down the steps. His face was pale with fury. Your Grace, he said quickly, they demanded keys. Corin's gaze stayed on Pelham. "You did not give them." The steward swallowed. "No," he said, "but they have entered the lower office. They claim—" Pelham stepped forward, voice smooth as oil. "Your Grace," he said, bowing as if this were cordial. "How fortunate. We feared you might avoid us." Corin's tone stayed even. "You are on my property." Pelham lifted the papers slightly. "By trustee instruction," he said, "for the protection of Hartwell." Elowen felt the servants watching. She felt the tenants at the edge of the drive. She felt the village holding its breath. Corin didn't raise his voice. He only tightened his grip on Elowen's hand just once. Then he looked at Pelham. "And which paper," Corin asked calmly, "do you believe gives you the right to stand here and threaten my house?" Pelham's smile sharpened. "The one you have not yet seen," he replied. And Elowen understood in that instant that Sibylla had not merely sent them ahead. She had sent a new weapon, one written while they were racing to stop it. Pelham's thin smile held. "The one you have not yet seen." Corin didn't blink. He kept his voice calm. "Then show it." Pelham lifted the paper as if unveiling a painting. Wax. A signature line, a bold heading that looked impressive from 10 paces away. Elowen felt the servants behind her shift. A whisper moved through them, not gossip. Fear. The stranger in the dark coat cleared his throat. "By order," he began, stepping forward with the paper raised like a banner. Corin's gaze flicked to him. "And you are?" The man stiffened. "Officer Braithwaite," he said, "appointed by the magistrate." Corin nodded once. "As a constable." "An officer," Braithwaite corrected. Corin's mouth curved faintly. No humor, only precision. "Then you will know the difference between an order and a request." Braithwaite hesitated. Pelham cut in quickly. "This is trustee instruction," he said, too smooth, "for the protection of Hartwell." Elowen felt her stomach tighten. Protection. That word again, used like a ribbon to wrap a blade. Corin held out his hand. "Give it to me." Pelham didn't. He lifted it a little higher. "Your mother has been most reasonable," Pelham said. "She only wishes to prevent—" Corin's voice remained even. "I did not ask what she wished." The steward stood rigid near the steps. His face looked like stone held together by anger. Elowen felt the village at the drive's edge. Tenants, stable boys, a gardener pretending to trim a hedge. Hartwell had an audience now, and Sibylla had chosen it on purpose. Elowen turned her head slightly. "Pelham," she said softly. His eyes flicked to her, pleased, as if he preferred the weaker opponent. Elowen kept her tone mild. "Is that paper the original settlement?" Pelham smiled. "It is sufficient." Elowen nodded once. "That is still not an answer." Corin's gaze stayed on Pelham. "You are trespassing," Corin said, "and you are frightening my staff." Pelham's smile tightened. "Your Grace, you are emotional," he replied. "Trustees must be practical." Elowen heard it. Emotional meant unstable. Unstable meant controllable. Corin's voice stayed quiet. "I am not emotional," he said. "I am precise." Then Corin lifted his chin toward the drive. A carriage was coming up fast. Not theirs, another. The horses were lathered. The wheels threw gravel like sparks. The steward's eyes widened. Elowen's breath caught. The carriage didn't stop at the polite distance. It came straight in and halted hard. A man climbed down before the footman could even open the door. He was middle-aged, neat, carrying a leather case like it contained the spine of the world. He strode toward them without waiting for invitation. Corin's voice softened, just slightly. "Mr. Harrowell." Pelham's smile vanished. Elowen felt the shift at once. Not comfort. Power. Mr. Harrowell inclined his head. "Your Grace," he said briskly. Then to Elowen, "Duchess." Elowen curtsied. "Mr. Harrowell." Harrowell's gaze went to Pelham. Cool. Assessing. "Mr. Pelham," he said, "it is always a pity to find a solicitor where he should not be." Pelham straightened. "You have no authority here," he snapped. Harrowell opened his case with a practiced flick. "Oh," he replied, I have rather a great deal. He drew out a thick document tied in faded ribbon. The paper looked older than all of Pelham's fresh ink. He held it up. This, Harrowell said, is the original Hartwell settlement, with the codicil signed by the late Duke. Corin's gaze didn't leave Pelham. Read the relevant portion, Corin said. Harrowell didn't need to be asked twice. He found the page. He ran his finger down. Then he spoke clearly enough for the servants and the village to hear. Trustee oversight is not to be invoked prior to the 5th year of marriage, absent declared incapacity of the Duke, Harrowell read, and no trustee may enter Hartwell House, remove keys, request inventories, or restrict household accounts without written consent of the Duke of Hartwell. A hush fell. Not the ballroom hush, a real one. Pelham's face went pale. Officer Braithwaite shifted his stance. Additionally, Harrowell continued, turning a page, the codicil removes any trustee found to have acted in bad faith or by personal malice. Sybilla's name did not need to be spoken. Everyone felt it anyway. Pelham swallowed. That codicil is not... Harrowell lifted his brows. Not convenient, he supplied. Yes, I imagine it is not. Corin's voice stayed calm. Pelham, he said, you have entered my offices. You have attempted to seize keys. You have threatened my steward. On what basis? Pelham's mouth opened. No sound came. Corin turned slightly toward Officer Braithwaite. Sir, Corin said, you have been lied to. Braithwaite looked at Harrowell, then at the old ribboned paper, then back at Pelham. His expression tightened with the particular anger of a man who dislikes being used. I was told there was an order, he said. Harrowell's tone stayed polite. There is no order, he replied. There is only an overreach. Corin nodded once. Escort them off my property. Pelham's voice rose. You cannot... Braithwaite stepped forward. Oh, I can, he said coldly. And I will. Pelham stared. Then he turned, quick, toward the drive, as if hoping a carriage might appear with Sybilla's approval inside it. None did. Corin's voice stopped him. One more thing, Corin said. Pelham froze. Corin's tone remained even. You will send word to Lady Sybilla, he said. You will tell her the codicil will be delivered to the trustees today. Pelham's throat worked. Corin continued, calm as winter. And you will tell her I will petition for her removal as trustee. A faint stir went through the servants. Not gossip. Hope. Pelham swallowed. And if she contests? Corin's gaze didn't waver. Then she will do so in court, he said. In public, with her name attached to every line. Pelham's shoulders sagged. He looked suddenly less like a weapon and more like a man who had chosen the wrong side. Braithwaite pointed toward the gate. Move! Pelham walked. The stranger followed. The second carriage rolled away, wheels crunching gravel like retreat. Elowen let out a breath she hadn't known she'd been holding. The steward's shoulders dropped. Mr. Harrowell shut his case with a quiet snap. Your Grace, he said, satisfied, I recommend we write to the bank before your mother does. Corin nodded. We will, he replied. Harrowell hesitated, then looked at Elowen. Duchess, he said more gently, you should know something else. Elowen's pulse jumped. Harrowell continued. The codicil was written after your wedding, he said. The late Duke anticipated this. Corin's jaw tightened. My father... Harrowell nodded. He saw what pressure does to women, he said, and what mothers can do when they believe they are rescuing a legacy. Corin looked away for a beat, then back. His voice was quieter. He trusted you, Corin murmured to Elowen. Elowen's throat tightened. I don't feel trustworthy, she admitted. Corin's gaze held hers. You stood, he said. That is the only proof I care about. A small laugh threatened. It didn't quite arrive. Elowen looked toward the village. They had not moved. They were still watching, waiting to see how a duchess behaved when the knives were pulled away. Elowen lifted her chin. She spoke clearly, not to perform, but to end the story Hartwell had been forced to live inside. I am not a question for strangers to answer, Elowen said. The words hung in the air, simple, final. Corin's hand found hers. Warm, steady. Not a shield, a partnership. The steward exhaled. Almost a sob. Then he bowed his head, as if the house itself had just been given permission to breathe again. Later, when the doors were shut and the papers were signed and Harrowell had ridden away with promises in his case, Hartwell grew quiet. Not the quiet of waiting, the quiet of safety. Elowen stood in the nursery wing that had been kept ready for 3 years, a room that had felt like accusation. Sunlight spilled across the floor, dust danced like it had nothing to fear. Corin came to the doorway. He didn't speak at first. He just watched her. Elowen touched the edge of the small cradle. Her fingers trembled. Corin crossed the room. He stopped behind her. His voice was low. "Do you want to close it?" Elowen swallowed. "No," she whispered. "Not yet." Corin's hand covered hers on the cradle rail, a steadying pressure. Then he leaned closer, his breath warm near her temple. "Whatever comes," he murmured, "comes to us, not to them." Elowen turned her head. Her eyes stung, not from pain, from relief that had nowhere else to go. "And if it never comes," she whispered. Corin's gaze held hers without flinching. "Then I will still choose you," he said. "Every day, until it becomes boring." Elowen let out a breath that turned into a laugh. Corin's mouth curved. There it was. Warmth, safe, earned. Elowen's fingers tightened around his. "Then we will give them something to talk about," she murmured. Corin lifted her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "Private." "Certain." "Yes," he said softly. "But this time, it will be our choice." Elowen did not notice the sickness at first. It arrived like a small treachery, a swallow of tea that turned sour, a warmth in her throat that had nothing to do with the fire. She set the cup down carefully. Too carefully. Corin's gaze caught it at once. "Elowen." "I am quite well," she said, and knew the lie before it left her mouth. Her face went pale, the room tilted, not enough to fall, enough to frighten. Corin was already at her side. His hand steadied her elbow. His voice stayed calm, but it held steel beneath it. "Sit." Elowen obeyed. She tried to smile. It did not behave. Corin glanced to the housekeeper. "Send for Dr. Henslow," he said. "At once." Sibylla's voice from the doorway tried to become amusement. "Oh," she murmured, "how very convenient." Corin didn't look at her. He didn't raise his voice. He only spoke to the footman as if Sibylla were a draught of cold air. "Close that door." The footman did. The click sounded like a boundary drawn. Elowen pressed her fingers to her lips, willing herself steady. "Please," she whispered, mortified, "do not make a fuss." Corin crouched beside her chair. Not a performance, a choice. "You are my wife," he murmured. "You are allowed a fuss." The doctor arrived with quiet haste. Older, grave. Clean hands, a gaze trained not to stare. He bowed to Elowen. "Your Grace." Corin rose. "Speak to me first," he said quietly. The doctor hesitated only long enough to show respect. Then he nodded. Corin stepped into the corridor with him. The door shut. Elowen heard nothing distinct. Only low voices, only the pause between them. Minutes stretched. Her stomach turned again. She swallowed hard. She kept her shoulders still. Then the door opened. Corin returned alone. His face was composed, but his eyes looked different. As if something inside him had finally unclenched. He crossed to her. He took her hand. His thumb brushed her knuckles once. "Elowen," he murmured means of her name. She tried to read him, tried to prepare. "What is it?" she asked. Corin exhaled, not a sigh, relief. "The doctor is of the opinion," he said softly, "that you are with child." Elowen went very still. The words did not make sound at first. They made weight, they made warmth, they made the room change. Her throat tightened. She began, and could not finish. Corin leaned closer. His voice stayed low, private, as though even the walls must not touch it. "We will say nothing for a little while," he murmured. "Not until you are stronger, not until you wish it." Elawan's eyes stung. "And the ton," she whispered. Corin's mouth curved, and this time the warmth stayed. "The ton may starve," he said gently. "They have fed on you long enough." Elawan let out a breath that turned into a small laugh, and then into tears she did not mean to shed. Corin's hand tightened around hers, steady, certain. He brought her knuckles to his lips, a kiss as careful as a vow. "Whatever comes," he murmured, "comes to us." Elawan nodded, and for the first time in 3 years, the nursery did not feel like an accusation. It felt like a beginning.
I don't need promises dressed up in gold. I need a voice that stays soft when I'm cold. I need a hand that won't tighten in pride, a space to breathe with truth at my side. I've seen the rooms where the whispers grow loud. I've worn their praise like a borrowed shroud. But I don't want what the world calls a prize. I want the one who won't look away from my eyes. Stay when the night gets heavy. Stay when my fear speaks first. Hold me gentle, hold me steady. Let love be kind, not cursed. If I am slow, be patient. If I am small, be brave. Don't make me perfect, just meet me where I am safe. My mother's story lives under my skin. The doorway closing, a smile wearing thin. So I learned early, don't hope too much. Don't name the ache, don't reach for a touch. I won't ask you to quiet your doubt. I won't call it foolish or push it out. I'll stand where you can see me clear. Not above you, not beyond you. Here, stay when the night gets heavy. Stay when my fear speaks first. Hold me gentle, hold me steady. Let love be kind, not cursed. If I am slow, be patient. If I am small, be brave. Don't make me perfect, just meet me where I am safe. You made me laugh when I tried to stay stern. You said my name like you meant to learn. And I hated how easy my walls came down, like they've been waiting for you in this town. I've been wanted for reasons that never last. A title, a rumor, a glittering mask. But you looked right through it and didn't pretend. So I started to want what I can't defend. Then the room turned sharp with its painted grace. Fans like feathers, judgment on every face. And suddenly you were too high to reach, and I couldn't hear my own heart when they speak. So if I step too close, I'll step back now. If I ask for too much, I'll soften my vow. I'll prove with days, not lines. I say that I'm not leaving when it's hard to stay. I'm scared of being chosen and then replaced, of giving my whole heart and losing my place. Then let me be simple, let me be true. No grand performance, just me and you. And if the world is cruel, we won't be common. We'll answer with love, quiet, constant. Stay when the night gets heavy. Stay when my fear speaks first. Hold me gentle, hold me steady. Let love be kind, not cursed. If I am slow, be patient. If I am small, be brave. Don't make me perfect, just meet me where I am safe. I don't want fireworks, I don't want pain. I want a morning that feels like rain. Soft on the window, steady and near. A life that says you're safe here. And if you whisper I love you at last, I won't rush it or hold you fast. like a sacred thing, and let the world